Attention. Okay, so in the interest of time, we are waiting on one more member, but in the meantime, what we're gonna do is get started on a presentation. We can't officially start the meeting, but we could start with the reduce carbon emissions by reducing power demand. Sorry, you just took a bite.
I was hoping the other person would show up. No such luck. Okay. I'll wait on my Diet Dr. Pepper.
Okay, I won't take it.
David, there's his control here.
I will control for you.
Fine. Okay, well, here we are. See if I can see this and you at the same time.
This is the timeshare presentation that we were told we had to attend to get dinner.
Barry, this is for you. It's got a colon in it.
Oh, excellent.
So this is the third in a series of presentations on climate and climate change and so forth. The first one was the direct.
You need the microphone.
I do
Yeah.
have to be ambidextrous. I don't know if I can do this.
I
Can you
need
hear me?
flip it on.
Flip it on. It's getting harder and harder.
Great.
Does this
It was
work?
great. It looks like he just got out of the on the side. Let's see, left the surfboard in the car.
Hello.
Oh,
There you go.
Hello. Hi. So it's a third of in a sequence of climate change presentations. The first one was on the direct consequences, the cost of the physical damage. I did that at the steering committee several months ago. The next one I did at the board, which was the consequences, things like the human deaths and for heat and cost of speed. This is not working.
You have to put it closer to your mouth.
Jackie has two hand gestures. One is this, make a lot of the other one is this, cut it off.
Oh, she has three.
Oh, wait.
Let's just hope she stays with
I
you.
never.
Oh, dear. Make sure I don't want to see the third. Okay, anyway. It seems like higher food costs, shortages of food, that kind of thing, the consequences of the heat. Tonight, we're going to talk about some of the things we can do about it, some of the things that we can, the COG strategies, and a kind of unknown source of what we have to do, which is to control the demand for electricity. So, David, go on. So it was red when I wrote it, but it's not whatever this color is. It's something we all know, which is that we have to get off fossil fuels, and it isn't an on-off switch. It is a transition process, and the transition process is so we have to move from fossil fuel to clean energy as soon as possible. But what I learned in all doing this, it was pretty interesting to me to learn some of this stuff, is that the reducing demand is a part of that transition, as well as increasing the investment in these things. Because I for most of my recent years, have thought about, well, we're just moving along and it's going to happen and the transition is happening and so forth, and it's not. Next, David. So, and time is running out. Everything I've read is that the urgency of this is overwhelming. We're talking about the next 5 years being really, really critical in terms of whether or not the weather eats us alive, or whether we can somehow reduce its impacts. Okay, so I looked at the Southern California Edison's power, and it's when you read stuff, it says, well, you really got clean energy here, so driving EVs is really good because the energy is clean. Turns out it's not. It's 35% renewable, and they do have a higher rate, up to 50 or 50% of renewable, but it's less than 1/10% of the folks who are to have Edison are actually buying that level of service. And the reason is that they can't get the available supply. In other words, they're constrained by the wholesale market. Where does all this energy come from? Yes, they can buy it, but it has to go through the folks who are producing it and then selling it retail. Now they have hopefully by 2045, they're going to be 100% carbon free. I think that's really, really aspirational, particularly given what's going on in the national policy right now, which is to not fund the renewables. So this is gonna require substantial investment. And I'll talk about that in a minute. David, go ahead. Now, finally, should I sit down now? We got the quorum. No, just kidding. The Clean Power Alliance is tremendous. I did some research onto this and my goodness, they are really there's 6 South Bay cities that belong to the Clean Power Alliance and they really deliver. You can go lean, clean and green, which I think is pretty great branding. And the problem is they're doing a good job now. And they can handle up to a 10% increase or 20% increase in demand. But can it expand beyond that? Because it's the same problem. There has to be investment in renewals so that it can be wholesale so that they can turn around and retail it. So we're doing okay now, but the question is, what's the future like? So, David, you've abandoned your post.
And during this pause, I'll note, Clean Power Alliance is looking into getting into the generation business as well. Because of that, we don't.
There's a lot of moving parts to it, and I will say this, when the first draft of this has gone through 4 drafts, and we started simple and compact, and now it's complex and involving. And Jackie is responsible for some of this, so I invite you to jump in if there's something you want to. Not that I need to, but there we have it. So I want to look at some headlines here, and there's 3 factors I want to talk about. One is that demand is increasing all on its own, even while we're trying to decrease it through more efficiency. So this is a headline that the grid can come up with AI, Bitcoin, EV charging, air conditioning, decarbonization of homes, which Kim is going to talk about a little bit later. So the demand for all this electrification of everything is and the addition of AI. Jake told me something tonight interesting about Google's, but what is it? If you say goodbye to a AI client, it's the same as 1,000 Google searches or something.
Yeah, it's roughly like a single search absorbing an amount more energy than a single Google search. The extent that people just saying, please, thank you to chatbots, it's going to save a lot of energy just to be slow.
So this is really serious stuff, AI and Bitcoin mining and so forth. It's really going to stress the grid and the use of. Now, if we can't do it through renewables, that means the fallback is to a dirty energy source. It says here coal, but that's a national. I don't think there's much coal possibility here on the West, maybe in Arizona. But the point is, oil, natural gas, coal has to fill in the gap between what the demand is versus the supply. Okay, go ahead, Dave. Now, the other phenomenon that we have to deal with is price is increasing. They're talking about 142. These are headlines and links to actual articles. 140% cost of pricing on the bills. Talking about the states warning that the debate about soaring utility bills, and also the fact that the economics of rooftop solar have changed out of Sacramento. So the whole idea of pricing is a very big issue. David, go ahead. And finally, reliability. The U.S. Department of Energy said we're going to have 800 hours of blackouts in the next 5 years. Full month of outages, plunging hospitals into shutdowns. These are actual articles and headlines. And this is not abstract. I was emailing with Jackie over the weekend, and your power was out for what, 6 hours or something like that? Yeah, I mean, this is, and if this was 110 degrees and your power's out for 6 hours, you're likely to die. So this is pretty serious stuff. And it turns out that heat waves itself are impacting the power grids. It degrades the transmission. So this is very serious stuff. Go ahead, David. Now, we're now going to talk about briefly that mobility produces 40% of our greenhouse gas emissions in the South Bay. And we do have some strategies for this, and that's what I want to at least touch on a little bit. Go ahead, David. So every month at the steering committee, Jake gives an update on the local travel network, or Ann does, and Kim gives an update on the Environmental Services Center, or Eleanor does. So all of this has to do with, every time you hear them talk, they're talking about how to address climate change. These are 5 pillars of the local travel network, which is about micromobility, which are 2, 3, and 4-wheel devices that go slow, and they have a 5-mile comfortable range. It can go longer than that, but I would say comfortable range. And I want you to remember the 5 miles, because we're going to talk a little bit about what the patterns are with some data that I've got. So the local travel network you hear about all the time is the micromobility hubs. We've just got funded and we're working on them that will either support more micro usage or more public transit. Destination parking, we're turning in a proposal this fall. We hope to get something that goes into parking into like malls and things where you have designated spots for micro devices. Origin parking, which is really important to have so that you have it at home and you can charge it at home. These small devices are all charging 110. And then a safety program, which we have funded right now, that Jake and Ann are working on about how we get e-bike safety and bicycle safety and all this out to not only the riders themselves, but to the drivers who run into them. And then we have a land use part too, which is smart neighborhoods, which is we connect our fiber network to digital hubs, to mobility hubs, to microgrids and battery storage all in one spot. And this makes a walkable neighborhood, actual neighborhood. Walkable is an overused urban design term. Walkable doesn't mean anything to me. Walk actual is what we want. And we have data to support this. So one of the things we want to do, and one of the tragedies of the regional housing needs assessment is they give cities volumes without helping how do you cite these things. And they say it's bike, peds, and transit. It doesn't. So having a smart neighborhood is what we're trying to move towards, where we will have actual walk, actual biking, all the different micro devices, and maybe some shuttle service and so forth. So it's all about trying to contain the demand for electricity. Plus, you get other benefits like safety and less congestion and things like that. We're just looking at this tonight through a climate lens. David, go ahead. So here's some data. Miles per kilowatt hour is like miles per gallon. The more of it you get, the better off you are. So a Tesla, which I'm using as the surrogate for the entire electric vehicle industry, because it is the most popular electric vehicle. So it's like 40 or 50% of the market. It's crazy. So you get 3 to 4 miles per kilowatt hour, as opposed to a neighborhood electric vehicle, which is over 2 times more efficient. A golf cart, which is a dressed down neighborhood electric vehicle, 6 times more. An e-trike, over 12 times more efficient, and the e-bike over 20 times more efficient than the Tesla. So I know that there's an issue around e-bikes here because of kids driving them recklessly and so forth. You're just happy they're not in a Ford Explorer driving recklessly, but still, the point is that it's an issue. But look at the benefit of an e-bike in terms of energy consumption at a time when it's really important that it has more to do with climate than anything else. David, go ahead. So here's some equivalents. If you take your average household energy consumption, if you have a Tesla and you drive 5 miles in it, you are accounting for 5% of your household's energy consumption just on that one 5-mile trip. On the other hand, if you're on an e-trike, it's 3% of that. So the energy consumption differences between these different modes, even if they're all electric, makes a heck of a lot of difference to the source of renewable energy. Go ahead, Dave. Now, I know everybody wants to know Waymo is sweeping the whole thing. My son, when he was visiting, took a Waymo downtown. It was really exciting, you unlock it and it kind of talks to you and all this stuff. So it is not quite as efficient. It's an electric Jaguar for the most part. It's not quite as efficient as a Tesla because it's got all this computer stuff on it and sensors on the roof. And then all that has to be, it's electric. So it has to draw down the battery. So it's not quite as effective. So that's not a real solution. And they run empty 40 to almost half the time. And Uber and Lyft 40% to 60% of the time. I just throw that in. It doesn't have much to do with what we're talking about, but I thought it was interesting. Go ahead, David. So then we have what Caltrans and what HCD say, don't worry about all this density. We're going to ask you to pound in density into your communities because transit and bicycles will take care of it. And we're saying, hey, you know what? They have a role, but we'd like to expand it to 3 and 4 wheel devices because it expands the market for it. I personally would not get on an e-bike anymore because an accident for me I would not recover from it. I'm too old. But a trike, yeah, probably. I've driven it. It's okay. And NEVs are really cool. They're very much like a car. So that makes the market bigger to get into zero emission devices. So if you're gonna be, and this is an e-bus. So e-buses are, you can imagine they're electric, that's good, but they're really huge, big, heavy devices, big vehicles. They get a half a mile per kilowatt hour because they're so big and bulky. So you gotta have at least 5 passengers on it, even to get up to the Tesla stage. And if you want to get to some really good stuff like e-bikes and NEVs, you need 15. Basically, your e-bus should have half full loads at least to make sense from an energy standpoint. Now, pedal bikes are the big hero here. Pedal bikes, of course, have zero electricity that they use. And they're most energy efficient. If only we could all, I say, only if only elephants could fly. But if everybody would just ride a pedal bike, we'd be in a better world. Go ahead. The problem is there's an infrastructure issue with that, and I know that we have a public comment that's going to talk about what I'm about to say, so I'll be judicious. We made a case study of minor, not really a case study, but we looked up data on Santa Monica, which is a big leader in bike infrastructure versus the performance. And the data I found, which came from an AI tool, is almost 2 million to about $3.5 million a mile for protected bike lanes. So these bollards and stuff that you find not cheap exactly. City of Santa Monica spent $10 million just on its downtown area, putting in protected bike lanes. There are very, very vocal interest groups. I've seen them speak at the SCAG, 30 of them, one after another, extolling the virtues, and they're all virtues. But why not have more wheels and spread the market?
How long is their bike lane, the protected bike lane? So, any idea? Is it long as we're down to beach has got phenomenal.
Yeah, and in some cases, they really make a lot of sense. They might make sense here. I sadly have doctors in Santa Monica go all the time. I actually took pictures today of protected bike lanes. And there's really nobody. The bike advocates will tell me I'm nuts. I'm there all the time. I sit, while my wife is at the doctor, I sit outside and I count 3, 4 bike riders in an hour. I mean, we're not talking about, and as I said, Dina and I were talking earlier on today, they're narrow enough that you can't pass if in other words, they're designed for a low volume of use. If you start looking at 50,000 trips going down that street in that protected bike lane, it ain't gonna work. So that's why the local travel network doesn't do lanes. It does whole zones where you can use any street you want. So all of that demand disperses out through a neighborhood as opposed to going along. Now, if you're on a speed island and you have to have some sort of, road diet to get in and out, that makes a lot of sense. You have to do it. But they're not really wide enough to handle any kind of volume, but they're really, really wildly successful.
Well, while you're on, like.
I can't hear you. What? You want my mic? No.
You do have a public comment,
I know, I said it.
which I'm gonna really read later, but why don't you tell people where you got these numbers?
They came from an AI tool. And I assume that the AI tool goes to the staff reports and the council action in the city. I assume. I don't know. Anyway, we have another tool, which is Metro's locus tool. And we asked what the bike share was for trips that never left the city of Santa Monica. These are all local trips. A little over 1%, according to Metro's locus tool, not ours, Metro, done by Cambridge Systematics. And auto percent, 65% of those trips that stay in the city are driven. And even transit, the very famous Big Blue Bus, which has been a pretty famous thing for, it's a brand that really resonates, less than 1% of the trips inside the city. So let's go on to the next slide. And so we took a look at 3 inland cities to say, collectively, there was 240,000 trips, so roughly 80,000 in the city, but it doesn't evenly distribute. 240,000 trips never left those cities of origin. That's a lot of traffic, okay? And 70% of them are driven, even though they don't leave the city.
You have to say what, you can't read it. So can you say which cities?
Oh dear. Okay, 70% are driven and about 1% are biked. So there you have, and this is a common around wherever we use this locus tool. We find the same kinds of things.
Just real quick, Wally. So it's Carson, Hawthorne, and Gardena.
Right, inland cities,
Yeah.
inland cities. So is this okay? That 70% of the trips of 240,000 are driven? That does make a lot of sense to me. Go on to the next one. David. So then we took another look at it. We took one of the cities, Carson, and not picking on Carson, it's just that they're all the same. So I could have used anyone. It's just that this table was handy. So this is a half a mile trip. These are the number of trips that are only a half a mile in length. We have mode by distance. Jake does this work and it's really good. 62% of the trips within a half a mile in Carson, but it would be the same with any other city, are driven. Half a mile are driven. That's like to the 7-Eleven, right? I mean, it's like, in fact, up to a half a mile. Now, why would you drive a Ford Explorer to 7-Eleven when you could get into a golf cart or an NEV or on an e-bike with saddlebags? Anne has an e-bike with saddlebags. It's really, she showed us the other day. It's great.
Yeah, you crank up the AC in your Explorer for the half-mile drive and then leave it running while you go inside. I love this, but this is what makes me think we have no hope for humanity.
And then you sit in the car because you've got a phone call or a text that you have to send 20 minutes later. Your engine's still running.
I'm at Barry's camp.
God bless America.
So anyway, it goes, if you're driving a mile, it goes up to 75% driven. It kind of makes sense, but up to 5 miles, it's 94% driven. On an earlier slide, I said micro devices have a very comfortable distance of 5 miles. So it says, if you can work with us to get all of every household has one of these micro devices, you're looking at reducing the local traffic by over 90%. And sometimes when I go home on surface streets, coming out of Santa Monica to home, I go 8 miles and it takes me an hour and a quarter. That's where we're at. So if we are all in the small devices that went slow, we can knock down local traffic half a mile trips by 90%. Go ahead, David. Now, this is not the end of it. I said there were 5 pillars to the local travel network and 4 others to our micromobility strategy and our land use strategy. But here's some things we're looking at. Jackie's talked to the attorney. We talked about getting renting 2 or 3 or 4 of these NEVs from our local vendor and sharing them with you so you have the experience of going out driving.
Mike Jenkins is actually told me today, he's getting an expert to look into the gift. It would be a gift if he had this demonstration, but we were thinking of trying to get NEVs for you to try so that you could see how it would work in your community, but we have to make sure it's legal for you to have them. So we'll let you know, make sure.
The whole issue of robocabs, I've thought about a lot. And one of the things I want to check the legality of is if cities can say cabs are not welcome if the trip is only 3 miles. The reason for that is the fleet size, if they were taking everybody from home down to the 7-Eleven, would be huge. And we already know there's 100 robocabs now, Waymos, in LA County, and they're only along the beach. And there's already problems with parking them overnight. Every cab, every one of these devices has to be parked somewhere at night when they're not being used. And so they're in Santa Monica and the neighbors are saying every time they back up, you get this beep, 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 because they reposition themselves at night in the lot. So the whole idea of where they're stored, we got to cut down on the size of the robocabs. And why for a 3-mile trip when you can all be in on an e-bike or be in any local use vehicle at all? Cut down that edge. Can we regulate them? That's the question. Now,
Well, a question on that. So, because something I'm dealing with elderly parents who should not be driving, but anyway, yeah, that's anybody who's been through that battle. God bless you. But they need local transportation. So for them, like even a mile drive, a mile trip someplace, they need. They can't walk it, they sure as heck can't bike it. So, and I know they're far from alone. So I think that's actually an important segment that we need to look at serving for two reasons. One, from the the mobility issues that we're discussing here, but the other is this is how people die because they end up so isolated. And then you lose the social contact, and the next thing you know, you just lose it. And we
Well,
all
it's
have-
not on here, but we're also looking at automated shuttles. So that they would go around, pick people up. It goes with the mobility hub project I described or mentioned earlier on, is that we have pickup spots, or from there, they can go into the neighborhoods and pick people up. We have to reinvent low energy, zero emission mobility, and so much of our travel is local. And so having a shuttle or having individual vehicles that it is known in the transportation world that door to door on demand, no transfer, is the ideal mobility service. And that's why you have a car sitting outside with 400 horses on it, ready to pull it. On demand, you can go out and build a night if you want, and you just go to door where you want to go. This is ideal. But we have to find, under the circumstances, respecting climate change, but we have to start reinventing this stuff and get as close to that as we possibly can do. So
I read that Zooks is testing in our area. That's one of those shuttles.
oh, yes,
Are they testing in our area?
I don't know. Jackie and I rode in what was it? The Ollie. You ever heard of the Ollie? Remember we were at, yeah, we rode and sat in it. They don't make them. I guess they, anyway. The other thing is,
I was gonna mention that I went to San Francisco this weekend, and not only did I go on Waymo, but I also was at the park, and they had, city had a free program for people that were physically challenged, disabled, but whatever the right words are today. And they had all kinds of micro bicycles, 3 wheels, all kinds of things for people with wheelchairs to go all around Gulf Gate Park. And it seems to me that if that's one thing nobody talks about, Michael. There are ways of not having a van where you have to have a lift for a wheelchair. There are wheelchairs that are street worthy that you can actually use as a device to get around your neighborhood. And so it opens up the whole area for not elderly people that we don't want to get into anything, but for people that are physically disabled and can't really and have to take a big van or something. And so this has a lot of opportunities that we should be exploring.
yeah, well, I want to address housing because it's such a big deal. And we are working on a white paper on the regional housing needs assessment, which will address some of this stuff. But there is a movement in Sacramento that is shocking, that they're saying, oh, let's toss developers a bone and no parking, right? Just build it and there'll be no parking. And so what we're saying is, hey, if you'd wake up to the fact that it's not about just transit and just bicycling or having no parking at all, why not micro parking? Because it takes a smaller space. You can still provide the on-demand characteristic of an own vehicle and go a step further. Why don't you have a shared vehicle or a small fleet of shared vehicles there so that folks can use it when it is they need that demand, that they're not going to walk to someplace. And again, the smart neighborhood idea is about walking, but you're not going to walk everywhere. So we want to push this as an origin, the housing world, the HCDs to wake up that there's more devices out there besides bikes and public transit. Metro, we're talking to Metro about the end of the line in Redondo Beach, of what used to be the green line. I can't keep up with the things, but it used to be green. That there would be a station car there. Years ago, Barb used to have station cars. And so we're looking at doing NEVs or other micro devices at that lot to see if they can extend and have more first mile, last mile. And then finally, microgrids in our smart neighborhoods connected with mobility hubs and internet hubs. So that's the landscape that we're dealing with. Got to make the transition, got to cut down on demand. There are things in our mobility world that we need to start making different choices on. Yes, Ray.
Thank you, sir. Do you have anything that shows how much it's dirty and clean. Dirty energy it takes to charge that Tesla. And at what point is it net neutral with regard to, CO2 emissions and fossil fuels versus dirty energy to charge that Tesla? So, the naysayers are always like, hey, listen, that green energy doesn't come from fairy dust. Right, so we're using fossil fuels and, God knows whatever else, diesel and whatever, to power the supercharger, to power your Audi. And at what point is it a net neutral, I guess is the question.
I don't see how it can be a net neutral if I understand the question, but we could go into, I mean, Edison, I assume they charge off of Edison. They're not, any of the fast charges that a Tesla has is not part of the Clean Power Alliance. So they're drawing.
Right, I mean, right, so to charge a car, the power comes from somewhere.
Right.
Most of that power is dirty.
Yeah, Edison says 35%.
35%.
The thing that you get is the efficiency of a gas-fired
Yes.
power plant is drastically more efficient than a car is. On a per kilowatt hour of whether you're driving a gas powered car or you're using gas to fire, it's much more efficient in an electric power plant. The efficiency is, I forget what the efficiency numbers are, but it's like 2 to 1 almost what you get. So that's where that trade is.
And also, at least in more affluent areas, a lot of people that buy solar cars also put solar on their house. Right, or buy electric cars, put solar on their house. So, I planted it, they're not paying for charging the car at all. They just kind of big.
Right, but they just eliminate the solar rebates, that's a big deal, since. And there are materials, the panels are from China, so.
Well, that's why I said, when I did the research on this is enormously complicated area.
I mean, batteries are not nice things.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
To make or to recycle. So that's the.
Maybe did you have you had your, no, you just want it, okay. So this is my part, and Kim has a few ideas she's gonna run past you from the Environmental Services Center side of things. This was the mobility and land use.
All right. And then given the next slide. So, Dave, Wally was talking about the transportation market, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about the built environment. And, a lot of you have heard me share these numbers before, that energy efficiency is really important. We have, found a lot of opportunity, and these are in our, city facilities, in lighting and in HVAC units. And really, if you're not doing energy efficiency, we're talking about demand a lot for the clean power demand. But if you're not doing energy efficiency, it's really like putting energy into a bucket that just drains out with holes in it. Right? So you have to do, doesn't matter how clean it is, you're just wasting it. And you can never produce enough of it to be all clean all the time. Right? So you really do need to do energy efficiency. What's a little bit frustrating about this is that we were really been working hard to try to find incentives for cities to do this work because it's very costly. I mean, even that lighting project, even though it looks small, like 270,000, that's just for the lights, right? You might have to change out your banisters. You might have to, you have to have people come in. So it is costly. And what we're finding is a lot that the CPUC is moving away from giving a lot of incentives. I've had a lot of cities reaching out to me over the last probably few months, really looking at these numbers and the things that we've collected from being on site at your facilities and unable to give them more than like $20 for an air conditioning unit, for example. So we are working closely with the SoCal REN, who has now entered into agreements with what they call trade allies. That's looking at a lot of new emerging technology. We did have a meeting with our energy managers, which is your facilities staff, and looking at things like units and things like that that we can put on air conditioning units that make them more to cool it down easier and use less energy. But we are even talking about maybe having like a trade ally, meet and greet here where people can meet all the different ones. So I wanted to stress this point, and then if you go, see, perfect timing, David. And the next one is we get a lot of comments about people wanting to do solar. Everybody wants to do solar. But what's really important is the stacking order. You really need to do energy efficiency first. Then you have a lot of decarbonization going on, right? Where you're switching out your gas appliances or your gas heaters and things like that, hot water heaters at the cities. So you need to then do your decarbonization. And then the last thing you're gonna do is your solar. Because either if you're doing solar before you do energy efficiency, and then you go back and do energy efficiency, you've overbuilt your solar. You don't need to do that. If you're not taking into account your decarbonization, then you could underbuild your solar. So it's really important. A lot of third-party providers go straight to cities. We're seeing that happen, and they're really trying to package the solar work. And it's hard to get them to open up to doing energy efficiency, right? Because they want to build all that big solar. So just to let you think about that one. And the last one is, what else is in your control? So helping us implementing the energy efficiency opportunities that we found at your facilities, working with us to try to do that and find ways that they can be funded, inviting us to come out to your community and educate the community on these different things. And then really important is, I think, also to spread the word and help us with recognizing success. We're getting ready to do a couple of new direct installs. One is going to be at the residential level. And then the other one, we've been talking to Gardena, we've been implementing in Gardena, and then we have our green business program where we're also working with businesses. And so if we can come to your city council and really publicize the work that those businesses are doing, or leaders in your community, those residents, we would love to do that. I think that's it.
Yes, something.
See, I have a very short presentation. Any questions on those things?
Okay, thank you. We're gonna pass on the public comment.
Public comment, right?
So if you want to take a copy each, and then just to announce, we do not have a quorum and it doesn't look like we're gonna be able to obtain one. We need to have at least 10 people physically at the meeting. So for now, we're just gonna go over the informational, and then with the hopes that at the next steering committee meeting, we're gonna have to vote on some of these because they're gonna be time sensitive. So with that, I'm going to announce our next speaker. We have Martha Tremblay. She has over 27 years of professional engineering experience at the Los Angeles County Sanitation Districts, working in a variety of roles. She is currently the Assistant Chief Engineer and Assistant General Manager, where she provides executive direction over district operations. The Sanitation District's a limited purpose governmental agency created to manage wastewater and solid waste at a regional scale. Departments include human resources, wastewater management, solid waste management, engineering, financial management, facilities planning, and technical services, which are comprised of a diverse workforce of approximately 1,700 employees. She's directly involved in implementing agency policies, procedures, procurement, budgets, and is currently involved in expanding district's workforce development initiatives and providing direction on the implementation of the district's diversity, equity, and inclusion strategic action plan. She has a master's degree in civil engineering from UC Berkeley, a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from the University of Southern California, and is a registered professional engineer. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you very much for having me here today to share with you about the Clearwater Tunnel project. I think Director Bradley probably all heard the presentation. This is a shorter presentation. Anyway, I think maybe you might have heard in the news about a tunnel collapse that happened July 9th. So this is the project. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background, share with you what happened and our next steps. But, I thank you. I know my bio is pretty long, but the sanitation districts manages wastewater for over 5 million people. All of your wastewater from your cities comes to our Warren facility. David, can you comes to the Warren facility, that facility is along Sepulveda, Figueroa, right next to the 110 freeway, kind of at the bottom of the screen there.
So that's a new name for an old facility.
Yes, for the Joint Water Pollution Control Plant. Now it's the Warren Water Resource Facility. And basically, this facility is about six miles from the ocean. And as a result, we rely on a tunnel and outfall system. So we currently have two tunnels, those blue lines there, that go out and allow our treated wastewater to discharge out to the ocean. And there's outfalls, and I think Director Bradley got to see this past weekend
You get a
demonstration.
And take the tour of the outfalls and the sanitation district's biologic program. It is hugely educational and you will really learn something about it. It's a phenomenal tour.
Yeah, so now in order to get our treated, our clean water out there, right, we rely on tunnels. We currently have two tunnels built one was built in the 30s, the other one in the 50s. We're currently not able to inspect them because there's always water flowing through them. They actually cross a couple of seismic faults and they're not built to current seismic standards. And we've gotten close to capacity. So as a result, we started working on the planning for the Clearwater project, I mean, almost 20 years ago, right? It's involving the construction of a new tunnel. So it'll be an 18-foot tunnel. And now that tunnel is the yellow line. And you see it's kind of squiggly. Well, it's squiggly because we focus on having the alignment be along public right of way. You know, the public is always concerned if you're tunneling underground, is there going to be an issue with their homes? So as a result, you know, the line is not a straight line, mostly public right of way. It's a 7-mile tunnel. The tunnel boring machine is currently in mile 6. It's stuck. It's basically stuck in mile 6. The collapse happened around mile 7. David, can you
In the city of Los Angeles.
in the city of Los Angeles, yes, in the San Pedro area.
Those that really track these things.
So it's along Western Avenue, about 500 feet south of Weymouth, if you're familiar with that area. So like I said, mostly the alignment is a public right of way. Of course, when the collapse happened, we got lots of calls, lots of concerns from the public. So we've tried to reassure them in terms of that there's no movement at the surface at this point. But if you can, the next slide. So the tunneling, the shaft where the tunnel boring machine entered is actually in Carson. So everything that comes in and out of the tunnel, it has to come out from that side. And the tunnel started going through shallow depth, but currently at mile 6, it's about 420 feet deep. The collapse, the breach happened around 370 feet deep. So we had tunneled in that area a few months ago. And but conditions are pretty tough. There's rock, groundwater. They call it squeezing soil conditions, significant pressure that the tunnel boring machine is going through, but pretty deep in terms of where the tunnel is relative to the ground surface. Next slide. So specifically what happened on July 9th, you know, I mentioned everything has to come out one location at the shaft in Carson. The contractor uses these multi-service vehicles where the workers go in on these vehicles, materials come in and out. So what happened on the evening of July 9th, this multi-service vehicle went towards the tunnel boring machine head, which is 6 miles downstream, got through fine. On its way back, it realized that it couldn't go through because there was a collapse. So so basically alerted the tunnel boring machine operator that was at the 6 mile mark, went back and there were about a dozen workers there. Went back, got them. And luckily, because it was just a partial collapse, the workers were able to walk out past it and exit out. And you might have heard in the news that talked about 30 workers. So, you know, there's 6 miles long. So just a dozen were near the tunnel boring machine. The rest were on their way out. But basically, you know, this operator was able to contact and people got out. Luckily, everyone got out safely. No one was hurt. Next slide. And, you know, of course, when there's tunneling involved, people are always concerned what's happening down below might impact the surface. And Immediately, the contractor went out and made sure in terms of what was happening in the service, there was, in the surface, there was daily monitoring. For these types of projects, actually, there's surface monitoring that goes along before the tunnel boring machine is under to establish your baseline as it's going under. And then once you get past it too, the monitoring continues to make sure that there's no movement. I mean, there's additional monitoring that happens below ground too, to make sure, because sometimes by the time you see it at the surface, it's too late. So, but at this location, the contractor's gonna go back now and put those sensors, because those are taken out. Those are put in when the tunnel boring machine is gonna go through, but since this area, we had already tunneled a few months ago. But yeah, so there's a lot of readings, 300 feet upstream and downstream of the location within 50-foot intervals at pretty precise measurements to make sure that there's, that there's not something that we're missing. So far, there's been no movement, but the tunnel has been red tagged. The tunnel boring machine is not in operation at all. So, so it's something we're still working through. But, next slide.
I haven't been able to assess the machine, correct? It's still, it could be flooded for.
Correct. So I'll share a little bit about that in the next slide, but just briefly, other work that was going on for this project was at Royal Palms Beach in San Pedro. There's actually a sound wall. I mean, this is an actual picture of the footage there. This is the structure where the tunnel ends. And basically, we've been starting construction for a structure that's gonna go there. And last week, during some drilling, they found human bone, and they think it's Native American. So basically, that work at this location is now also on hold. So currently, there's no work going on for the Clearwater project.
What caused the breach?
Next slide.
Your nerd on this.
So at this point, we believe, based on what we heard from the workers coming out, we believe the breach is at a location that the contractor had previously observed cracking and water coming through. And basically, they implemented a fix. That fix failed. So we haven't been able to fully verify that because we haven't been able to go back in the tunnel. But we believe, based on the observation of the workers, that it's a failure of a specific section. So we think maybe 20, 40 feet collapse. It's not an entire collapse of the tunnel, just a specific location that was already an area of concern. And there's just a failure. So we will confirm that, and based on the information we find in terms of the cost, then develop a plan to fix it so that this doesn't happen again. But at this point, our contractor, we're working with OSHA. The contractors have submitted a plan of entry, but OSHA hasn't approved it because they're very concerned in terms of there's water down below, and they're concerned that if anyone goes in, what if there's a tsunami of water once it gets to the breach, once they start moving things around. And they're really concerned about that, so they won't approve it. So now and the contractors looked into, can they do like a remote operated vehicle to go in, but 5 miles in, technology is not quite there. But now what they're planning on is actually drilling a borehole from the top of Western, drilling down to 370 feet, and putting a camera down there so that they can hopefully be able to assess how much water is down there, what are the conditions down there, so to ensure that their plan addresses the risk in terms of entry. So just even drilling the borehole is a couple of weeks, and we're still trying to get the approval from Western. I guess Western is under Caltrans.
It's Caltrans
jurisdiction.
in City in the
Yeah.
where it collapsed.
Yes, so we're still working through that in terms of gearing up to have the contractor do the boring and put the camera in, and hopefully we're able to see that maybe there's not that much water all along, even though there's no activity. All the water that's been coming through has been managed. The water that's being pumped has dropped down. So we think that's a good sign and that things have stabilized. But yes, OSHA is very concerned in terms of what's down below and it posing a risk to whoever goes down. So at this point, once we get the okay from OSHA, we can go in, the inspection can be done to determine the cause, come up with a fix. And we have hired additional experts. You know, the contractor did what they thought was right. I mean, there was a failure. I mean, in terms of whose the responsibility it is, that's still something that needs to be determined. But, you know, on our end, we're bringing extra people on board to help us. You know, in terms of what we've been told, these types of failures are pretty rare. So we'll see, you know, in terms of, but at this point, you know, everything's on hold until we get the okay from OSHA to restart. So next slide. So at this point, in terms of the key takeaways here, fortunately, there's no land movement or any impact at street level. This is very important for residents. And we'll continue doing monitoring to make sure that there's no issue there. At this point, we have no timeline in terms of the work, when it will resume. I mean, we're hoping that we can work out the issues with OSHA and that they give the contractor approval to move forward. But, you know, as far as we're concerned, you know, the work is not going to resume until we make sure that we know that the work can be done in a safe manner. And at this point, you know, we'll see what happens. I mean, it's a lot of money in terms of this, but you know, this project is very important. We need to be able to treat our water and it go out to the ocean. We do have a recycling project, the Pure Water Southern California. It will take some of the flow from this facility, but you know, that's going to take years to construct. And so this project is very important and we just need one more mile to go and then we're going to be done. So wish us luck. So the next slide, this is the end of my presentation. We are providing critical updates as we have them. We have a website that we'll provide updates in terms of when we are going in to inspect and in terms of once we identify the failure and, you know, progress about this project. And, you know, Michael Shi is our public information officer. If you have any questions. Yes. Yes.
What's the process? You mentioned that there were remains found. If it turns out that it's remains of indigenous people, what's the process?
So we have, you know, these large projects do involve like a cultural tribal component. So it turns out, you know, we have a person that's on site a lot of the times. The day the bone was found, he wasn't on site. But there is a consultation process, and at this point, we need to develop a plan, and most likely it will involve kind of doing some careful digging to see, you know, what is the extent? Is it just isolated or is there more? So that's now another challenge that we're working through. Anything else? Yes.
Yeah, is the tunnel gonna be fully lined or will it be pipes inside? of
No.
it?
It's actually what's happening here is we have the tunnel boring machine that's doing the digging. And then as it's going through, these segmented liners it's like a puzzle piece. And you're basically building the pipe as you go. So it'll be.
Your second slide, you can
Oh,
see
yes,
some of the lineup.
actually the first one, I think.
Yeah, the first.
The title
Yeah,
of this one, yes. So this is the pipe itself. So it gets built along as the tunnel boring machine is going through. It's like puzzle pieces.
So where it collapsed, it actually collapsed through.
We think what happened was it's like several segments collapse. Cause each segment is like 5 feet in length. And we think 20 to 40 foot, it's like several segments that collapse. And we think it's partial, you know, part of it was okay. And based on what the workers observed, they think it was that area that the contractor had repaired. Yes.
So since we're gonna blame the contractor, they got absorbing all these.
Well,
overruns.
it's more
And I don't mean
complicated.
blame it,
Yes.
but.
It's more complicated.
I
What
understand.
the contractor has claimed before this collapse happened is that there's more water than he expected. And when there's more water, I mean, it's already like a changed condition. So he brought this up already a while ago and now. So it'll be a little complicated. I think until we go in and really identify, was it a defected segment or was it workmanship or something, then we'll be able to determine whose responsibility it is.
I have one quick question. So does that portion that's collapsed, will that affect the integrity of the rest of the tunnel?
We're hoping this is an isolated location but we won't know until we go in and actually assess what happened. But, and that's where, when we go in, we'll inspect, make sure in terms of the structural integrity of what's already been constructed. But so far, we feel this is just an isolated section.
Okay, Wally?
One of the things that we're looking at in our housing paper, white paper, is the carrying capacity of the region. And given that the existing, and one of the urbanist argument is, oh, you want to pump all your density into existing areas because you don't have to replicate or duplicate the infrastructure in the new areas. One of the things we say is, yeah, I know, but some of this stuff is really worn out.
Yes.
And that kind of density you're talking about is going to put it over the top. So what does the condition, you had existing infrastructure that's broken down sort of, and then new infrastructure that you're having a hard time. How does that affect the carrying capacity of what it is you do, and how will it be impacted by increased density?
So in terms of what we find, population has grown, but then there are requirements that they use less water. So we've actually seen less flow, our flow to the plant has dropped. We were treating before like 350 million gallons per day. Now we're treating 250 million gallons per day.
What's the reason it dropped for households?
Well, because there's more efficiency, right? There in
Yeah.
terms of
Recycling.
appliances and so there's an expectation, yeah, even though population has grown, there's an expectation that there's less water use, and we have seen it in
I
terms
think
of the
it's summer,
wastewater.
you're talking about shower heads that don't.
Yeah,
that are low
yes,
flow
yes,
shower heads,
yeah.
okay.
Yes, so I think for us on this end.
Thanks, thought though, Wally.
Yeah, I like my long hot shower.
Yeah, so here what's happening though, it's the extreme wet weather events and these big storms that are coming through that result in our flows at the wastewater treatment plant come up because all the manholes and the openings through those manholes, and we actually have programs requesting our cities to help, seal those manhole openings. So that when it rains, that water, that storm water doesn't go into the sewer system. Because when it goes into the sewer system in a manhole, it goes to the Warren, it goes to a wastewater treatment plant and the flows go up. So,
extreme weather is
Yes.
is
This is
damaging the
gonna-
entire,
yes.
entire system.
yes, this project will help us be more climate resilient.
But the other thing the sanitation district has done is water treatment and turning it into gray water and reusing it for agriculture and other things. So which has drastically reduced the amount that's going into the outflow.
Yes, we've done that upstream. Yes, so that's reduced some of the flow that comes to the Carson plant. See, he was.
I am.
Thank you. And I know, I don't want to overstate.
Not on this.
And you were, okay,
You said this failure was that Western?
yes, that's where, yeah, Western and Weymouth, yes.
You can't.
Unfortunately, missed my city by about a half a mile.
No, but yeah, we had a town hall with McCosker and Janet and Supervisor Hahn, and yeah, there were residents really concerned about the monitoring, but once we shared in terms of the surface monitoring and all the work that we're doing there, then, but we will keep the public apprised in terms of what happens.
So you can't go to mile 7 and work backwards.
No, unfortunately
The
not.
footprint is so big in cars.
Correct. Yes, correct. That's not, so basically, if for some reason we can't restart the tunnel boring machine, which could happen. You would have, typically when this happens, they have to go through the surface. So we're hopeful that the TBM, the tunnel boring machine will restart. And I mean, this has happened to others in terms of, they stop. We should be able to restart. The issue here with us, the collapse, I guess what we've heard is typically you don't see something like this. So, and we are hopeful that it's isolated and that we'll be able to identify the cause and implement a repair that's gonna work.
Was the tunnel boring machine, is that similar to what they use like for the channel?
Exactly, it's what Metro uses to build, I mean, our tunnel is smaller, I mean, our actual tunnel is gonna be 18 feet once it's done. I mean, MTA builds bigger tunnels. So I mean, this has been done, and just like, you know, our tunnels that were built in the thirties and fifties under simpler technology than what we have. So that's where, you know, we're hopeful that we'll get through this, but.
Guys with pickaxes. Yeah.
Yes,
Right.
exactly. Yes, we have photos in terms of what was used at this time. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that presentation.
Thank you for having me.
And so we'll move it along to the action
Well,
reports.
I wanted to mention, we have, it's such a we have such a busy meeting today. And I just wanted to announce to you my intention, which is like on the consent calendar, we're gonna put the minutes on next month, obviously. And the agency partnership policy and board elections will go on next month. But things like the contract with the sanitation district, I'm gonna take that to the steering committee and do that there, and then the board will hear about it, but we can't wait for that one. And also I wanted to mention that the city of Los Angeles dues are in process. They are going to pay their dues. We've received, and what this will come up at the steering committee, we received a letter from Tim McCosker that he would like to have an alternate. He does not, his alternate right now is like every other city, is another city council member, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense in the city of LA, because for years we've been carrying the council member that serves the west side as the alternate, and that council member knows nothing about the cause.
Valley.
Yeah, right. So what he's asking for, and right now Axel was in the audience from his office. If Axel had that vote, we would have a quorum right now. But Axel doesn't have a vote. So the steering committee will be asked about it. We have the letter. Unfortunately, this provision's in our JPA, which means we have to change the entire JPA agreement to do this, which will take several months. But I think, you know, I think it's an interesting thing for you to contemplate. When the county came in, the board at that time said, no, every city's got to be treated the same. But LA City is a little bit different. So I just want to mention that the dues are coming in. That will be 100% of the dues.
So moved.
We can't move anything.
And
Carson
is back in the fold?
Carson paid, yes, everybody's paid, we're 100% with, yeah.
Ready to talk to them?
So, okay, on page 53, we're gonna talk about the General Assembly. I can't remember how many of you were actually at those steering committee, but the General Assembly, the steering committee is recommending, and we can bring, I would like to take this to the steering committee because we want to start publicizing the General Assembly and getting some sponsors. But the name that was selected and the topic that was selected was Let the Games Begin, How Sports and Entertainment Are Shaping the South Bay. And we would try very hard to make this, everybody's talking about the games, but to make this General Assembly very specific to the South Bay and what it means to our economic development and the future and everything like that. We want to change the venue from Carson, and we've had a discussion with the Intuit Dome, and you know, for $100,000, I think we actually can have it at the Intuit Dome. So I don't think that's going to work out. But one of the things that we'd love to, if you have a sports facility in your city, you know, please let us know. We're going to try to talk to the El Segundo council members about maybe one of the training facilities in El Segundo as a place to have the general.
Mayor Bud said we were gonna look at the YouTube.
He hasn't,
Smaller facility.
yeah, but we haven't heard back from him, and we asked for a date to go see these things. We'll follow up. But there are smaller facilities that, the only place that contacted us was Intuit Dome.
Dignity Health Sports Park.
Right. Yeah, we could go to Dignity Health in Carson.
About Drew and El Segundo with some all.
Well, that's what,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what we thought. We asked Chris and Drew if we can go to El Segundo. And I've already mentioned it to the city manager, so you'll hear a lot more about that, but if we can, I think if we can just assume that that's the name, we can come back to the board with the ratification, but we really do need to start publicizing the General Assembly. So, that's where we are, and if you know speakers, that would be good, a sports figure in your city or an executive from one of the,
Stan Kroenke, does he live in any of your cities?
AC Green.
I don't, AC Green's a player, right?
Ex-player, retired tax collector.
Okay, does he speak on these
I
things?
could try to ask.
Maybe as a moderator or something, it might be interesting to have.
That's fine.
Yeah, that may be fun.
Start.
Yeah, if you can.
Should I just go? Yeah, sorry. Kim, do you want to just say anything about your report?
I think I've done most of it. We have been meeting with, we have been meeting with LA County Office of Sustainability to go over the application for the Rivers and Mountains Conservancy grant for the biodiversity plan for the South Bay. Everybody is very excited about this grant. And what we found out from Rivers and Mountains is that it has to have a significant amount of the funding going to the demonstration project. So we did reach out to all the cities and ask for ideas for demonstration projects. I think for this initial submission, there's like several levels of submission, and this is like the initial one. Is that we're going to focus on the disadvantaged communities, and then for the demonstrations, and then after we get through that piece, because we're going to name a couple of the disadvantaged communities, but we're going to still say, still talk about the entire South Bay. And so that's the way we're kind of packaging it right now. And I thought what was really interesting was that LA County, I was very upset that we had to do so much demonstration, and I really wanted to do the plan. And they're going to work on the budget so that the balance is better, and there's a lot of demonstration, and we still get what we need for the plan, so. I think that.
Okay, so then the next one is homeless services, and I have to say that it is extremely important that we get the contracts out, so we're gonna take that to the steering committee. We can't do it tonight.
We need a special board motion for the steering to.
If I think that the steering, what happens is, and I'm just gonna make this up, that when the board doesn't meet, the steering committee acts as the board.
Right.
And that's what it is on other times. So what we'll do is we'll report it to the board, and someone's in the board agenda, they'll say actions that were taken at the steering committee. So we'll have that, but we will bring this to the steering committee. So Ronson, I think it's really important though for you to talk about the things you were going to talk about.
So just two quick updates. One is the cost of the housing production preservation ownership guidelines were approved by the cost of the board. So we can begin our activities on affordable housing production. So the next step for us, like Jackie and I talked about, was identifying our region's current pipeline. There are projects already in some of our cities. And so we want to get a better sense of what those projects are and whether or not they need a public subsidy. And so we'll be emailing your city managers, community planners, and housing authorities for a list of developments already in the pipeline that may need like a subsidy of some sort. So that's our next step. Next. And then you were supposed to approve this, but I guess the steering will do this, but this is, we previously had the budget about our local solutions fund and our CASA funds. We did the contract templates, and you were going to approve all the different scopes of works. And these were the different scopes of works in your packet. So.
There's tremendous amount, Ronson's been doing a tremendous amount of work. There's like 20 contracts that are going out for all of these different management surveys. And we're really good. It's really good that we're coming out early with this because the county money is lagging. And so everything will come to a screeching halt if we can't get this done. I think we can wait the week, but we really do need to get this done at the steering committee because they're very important.
Oh yeah, thanks. Thanks for bringing that up, Jackie. What she's referring to, and I probably should put this on a slide, but the LAist had an article last week where they saw losses submitting emails to all the family providers, telling them that there's no more money left, there's no more family shelters, you have to turn people away. But in our region, we don't want them to turn people away. So, and partly is because we do have funding for families. So yeah, hopefully the steering can improve these and we can get going and not have to turn families away.
And I want to mention that not only has Ronson been busy with 20 contracts and getting them out and with the cities and all the providers, but also we've hired 2 people that are coming on Tuesday.
we're very excited. They've been doing a lot of interviews.
We've been doing a lot of interviews, and these people were, that we have a man and a woman coming. And one is gonna be working mostly on La Casa projects, the other is gonna be working on homeless services. So we're really excited to welcome them, and maybe you can meet them at the next meeting. Okay, so the other thing that, well, I could go into it right now, is when Ronson says that we're gonna be contacting your city managers and your community development directors. We just had the housing trust last meeting just now, and in October, right now, the current schedule, if it holds, in October, we'll be coming to you with all of the analysis from the consultant, and also whether you want to form a housing trust. We're getting $5 million from La Casa for this kind of housing. $5 million in the scheme of things is not a lot of money. And what we want to know is, are there cities, and somebody today from one of the cities said, I can use that money. So if there are cities that have the need right now, I'm gonna editorialize here. Instead of hiring a lot of consultants and starting a whole new agency, maybe we get that money right out into housing right away. And then we save the trust for when we can have more money and be able to do something. Just a little preview, the hard costs for the trust are such as estimated by the consultant that we will need a city contribution as well. So you'll get all the specifics in October, but when your city manager gets that, and if you know of a development in your city that could use a subsidy, we need to know that. It's really important that we know that actually before the October meetings, if possible. Okay, so that's senior services. Anything to say on senior services?
No, we're still developing the agenda for it.
Yeah, okay. I think Mike Bulkey is here for transportation. Are you here, Mike? Oh yeah, there he is. Mike, we don't have a quorum, but can you give a report?
Okay, I'm ready. I'm not sure if how you can hear me, because I was trying to use my hearing aids, and so I guess have a couple things real short. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so first thing I want to talk about is that I accidentally misled Jackie about the release of the FEIR. I was incorrect in saying that it would be released on September 8th. At this point, they're not committing to a specific date because they have some internal logistics they have to solve.
Okay, Mike, you please let me explain it. He's talking about the Sea Line extension from Redondo Beach to Torth.
Oh, I'm sorry, because I haven't been able to hear the Sea Line. Yeah, the FER for the Sea Line. They're going to make the notice on September. Well, they're going to make the notice that it's going to be released, and when the release date will be in the notice that they put out, I think, on September 2nd or 3rd, because once they release the FEIR, anyone who has an issue to raise in the legal area has 10 days in which to file as per SEQA. So, but they are bringing the FEIR to the board in the October board cycle. And that will be the time when people can come in, having had plenty of time to read it since early September. They'll have time to come in to the board at the planning committee and the board to make whatever comments they still want to make, or in reaction to the comments, the answers that were in the response to comments. Then I wanted to brief you real quickly on the discussion I had today with Metro staff on the MSP audits. I brought up to them that wondering why this is the first time they've tried to do MSP audits. And what Ray is saying is that it's been 10 years since Measure M passed, and we're going to come up to the decennial transfer process. So what they want to do is go back and look at the 10 years, how the money has been flowing, what kinds of problems the COGs have had in terms of the money flow and projects, and how Metro can be helpful. And one of the things I stressed to them, pulling out some history, that I said it's, the type of pushback you're getting from the COGs, and especially South Bay COG, is that South Bay still remembers that Measure R had that little footnote that made the cities come up with 3% contributions. And then I also reminded them that the South Bay has not forgotten that on the Sea Line extension, the Crenshaw line, that South Bay inadvertently had to pay roughly $23 million towards the cost overrun on professional services as their percentage of the deal that they made supposedly with the city of Los Angeles and the West Side COG. And because the city of Los Angeles controls all of the West Side COG money, LADOT has refused ever to come up with that money. I said that those issues give COGs pause to be suspicious about these audits, and the fact that they need to convince the COG that this isn't a way to come in and poach money. So Sharon Gutkin was very, she was very upfront that this is not what they want to do. Right now, in terms of where they're going, is preliminary scope for the audit has been developed and will be finalized by early September. An external firm will be selected with the requisite knowledge and expertise. Then outreach will be made to the COGs and other sub-region representatives to share more specific information about the audit details and timing of the work. This information will be presented in a workshop to be in late September. And then to go in, I'll send this as part of the notes for you. Then they went into the reason why the audit, and Metro is aware that some of the COGs may have concerns about the audit, but the audit will be done in a fair and impartial way with consideration given to not burdening the subregions with the audit. So it took me close to the month to get this kind of information, but I wanted to bring it back to this board because I told you I would bring it back this month. Unless there's any questions, I'll segue over and let Andy take over.
I have a question, Mike.
Yeah.
Sea Line report will not, Sea Line FEIR will not be available for the Transportation Committee meeting on the 8th.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. I spoke with Dave Meager, and then I, in my emails back and forth with Ray Sosa over the issue of release date, I had mentioned this, that you were hoping to put it on the Transportation Committee on the 8th. And Ray assured me that they would be able to send down Metro staff to be able to give you the briefing on this. Now, they may not be able to tell you some of the things, that, more depth, but they won't give you an in-depth briefing on it. they may not come out and tell you certain specifics because they haven't been released in the FEIR, but they'll give you 95% of, I think, the types of information you need to be able to have a better discussion of this in October.
Yeah, I think we would want that because October, we meet the same day as the board. So if we don't do it in September, then we have a problem with meeting in October.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
I'm not really sure how to get around that. I was,
No, that's okay, Mike. If we can get somebody in September, that would be great. The other thing I wanted to mention, just for our board members, this is the MSP audits. We never did have audits for this, all of your projects that we use Measure M on. We never had this with Measure R. And the funny thing is, if they want to know what the problem is, we just had to pay what, how much extra for Gardena? Because, how much? $500,000 for Gardena because Metro didn't do the funding agreements. So if they want to know what the problem is, it's right there at Metro. That's gonna be what we're gonna say.
Blame Metro.
Well, it cost us
Company
money.
excluded.
It cost us money. Okay, thanks, Mike. We'll go to Andy.
okay, thank you.
On that happy note.
Yeah, just a couple things. So, Metro, when we do release dates for FEIRs, we generally don't have like an official date that we commit to. Things are always changing. We have 2,000 comments for the FEIR that we're responding to. And we're, putting all the materials together. So we don't have a lockstep firm date now to release it. We're hoping to do it next month. But nothing is set in stone right now for the FEIR, and I wouldn't say the October date. We're, perhaps it's a name, but it's not explicitly there right now. But the release date is pending and it will be coming out, very shortly. I just wanted to say that. We'll be sure to let the COG, and we'll be briefing some of the cities, letting people know when the FEIR is released. So I just wanted to kind of give that as a caveat there. Other Metro updates, the SoFi Shuttle's up and running, about 1,600 people used it to go last couple of preseason games. So that's been a nice success. We also have the A-line stations, 4 A-line stations are opening up at the end of the month. So that's the Pomona, Glendale, it's actually not Glendale, Glendora, and San Dimas and Laverne. So I'll be opening on September 19th, be the longest light rail in the whole world. But those are kind of the main things, but we will, just to go back to the FAR, we'll absolutely be in touch with the board and the COG, and we want to, support and share all the materials and the FAQs, but we just want to, keep the launch date is just to be a little fluid right now as we get everything in a row. So just want to make those points. I think that's it for me.
I wanted to mention, if we can get the transportation committee, it's really important to us. But also, we all talked about the SoFi shuttle, and I sent out something that said Metro was paying for the SoFi shuttle. What I found out afterwards, and I didn't send out something, I'm sorry, is that Gardena charges for their shuttle, Torrance charges for their shuttle. So Metro has a free shuttle that is subsidized by Metro, but the other cities do charge for their shuttles.
This minimum.
It's $2, $4.
Round trip.
From where to where?
Gardena runs out of the transit center up of one.
Harbor Gateway Transit.
Yeah.
To SoFi?
Round trip.
Or it's no express lane, all right, as well, regular traffic lane, right?
The other thing I wanted to mention,
Sorry, can I just make one more point about we have the Open and Slow Streets grant will be opening up and that will be, we're having a webinar about that on September 8th. And this is the grant program where you can get funds to close down your streets for fan events. And we don't pay for the programming, but it's up to the cities to do that. But CBOs can apply for it. So your local chambers could apply for it. The North Redondo Beach Business Association could apply for it. Different organizations like that. So I'll send out an email to Colleen that she can circulate that has that information. We'll be having a webinar on September 8th. And I think they the closing of the application is October 10th.
if you're gonna close your streets, let us know, and we'll have local travel network people there too.
Yeah.
Yes, so let us know.
Close the street.
Okay, I also want to mention that at this transportation committee, we will be discussing the I-405 Wilmington project, which is just like the Teja one we talked about. It's still going and there's no responsible agency for that project either. And we're trying to set up the meeting. We do have a meeting set up with Mayor Butts to talk about the fact that the way Metro is treating the 405, there will never be any improvements on it again. So we'll be back with that great news for you. Okay, going on. The commercial redevelopment to housing is started. We're working with cities and trying to get sites selected to discuss that. The housing trust feasibility, I did talk to you about. Unfortunately, today, at the meeting, there was one elected official, maybe two. Now two, because I didn't realize Bill Uphoff was in, and one city manager. So we didn't have a really great turnout from cities. And this will come back to you in October. The next thing, I think I mentioned to you last month that unfortunately the owner of the fiber, the man that wanted to buy the fiber network didn't have any financing. So I talked to Mike Jenkins about this, and the board had passed a resolution with all kinds of conditions, and the proper format is to pass a rescinding resolution because that one is still standing. The rescinding resolution can wait, and we'll put that on the September 4th agenda. And I guess now that I explained it a little, I can put it on the consent calendar. I would imagine that would be fine. And but what's happened is that I don't know, we were having trouble finding an owner, and now all of a sudden we're looking for another operator, because the problem was our current operator is doing a fine job, but he doesn't want to expand, and we want to expand. So we're looking for another operator, and now we have three companies that are very interested, two of which are viable, we consider viable. So next week we're getting proposals, and they keep telling us how excited they are. You know, it's like fool me once, we're going to be really, really careful. But these are companies that are in business. They understand it much better than we think this other guy did, who couldn't get the financing in the first place. So we're hoping to be able to come back to you in a month or 2 months maybe, and tell you that we have a way to go, that we can stabilize, you know, get the new operator and then expand the South Big Fiber Network. It's looking pretty good. Then Wally, you wanted to talk about the AI working group. And one of the things that what I've sensed from all of you is that there's a lot of interest in the AI working group. We do not have a lot of time, you can see, with all the other things we're doing. So we're thinking of bringing on somebody just very, very part-time to help us do a curriculum or whatever for the AI working group and set up the schedule of the next couple of meetings. And Wally wanted to talk to you about that.
Yeah, we want to get an idea of what you're interested in so that we can sort of craft a scope of work for this part-time person that we're looking at. First off, can I just see a lot of you have shown some interest in it. Can I see a show of hands of?
Yeah, curious.
Wow. Show of hands if you're not interested. Okay, so let me throw out a few ideas right now but we're gonna know what you want to know. And what we're looking about is the COG's role in this. And generally speaking, our role is to do strategic planning for whatever it is, whether it's land use or transportation, and then you all decide whether you want to implement it or not.
That would be the same for AI, but I think the COG could bring back for the member cities an idea of the opportunities that AI could bring to the cities, help us with our, everything.
Excellent, good start. So I've got a brief list. I think this covers it. Developing a catalog of the AI tools and what their purposes are, what data they use, and how much they cost. So we would want
Also the pros and cons. I mean, there are some downsides with some of them, and we as individual cities don't have enough experience with that to understand the downside. So that's always one of my big fears.
Good. Somebody that would monitor what each city is doing with AI, because we're aware that it's sort of going on. And we like to kind of know because it results in the fiber network demand. And secondly, we could share what you're doing with what someone else is doing. So, that kind of thing. So that sounds okay. then also monitoring, for example, I went to the government technology conference a couple of weeks ago. And going to these things, attending broadband breakfast, monitoring the literature, and then making kind of reports like we do here for the different departments. So this is what we know about AI news. And how it reverberates through the policy community and so forth. That's another sort of function. Any kind of money that's available for this, we don't know of any right now, but there could be funding to do AI demonstration projects at the municipal level. I'll have to read my own writings.
I mean, for us, I mean, one of the things would be interesting is constituent services. I mean, how could we have like a AI manned 24-hour call center that would, be able to answer 80-90% of our citizens' questions, not during business hours, that would allow them to have more access to city services?
Well, and in my scheme of things that I'm just going through, that would be the catalog of AI tools, is the one that specializes in constituent service. Another one is in traffic control, signal synchronization and things like that. There's a whole bunch of tools out there. I saw one, CalCog did a presentation in which they had AI used to define a bike network in Santa Barbara. One thing to know about this is that there's been a movement for at least 4 or 5 years to talk about big data. And this is a foot in the door of big data. And so if you're not interested in having, say, sensors collect passive information, that creates a database, because every AI tool has to be trained on your data. And so it means starting to collect more data than probably what you're doing up until now. So I'm just saying, get our nose in the tent of artificial intelligence means also taking on the responsibility of generating data. The COG AI applications are the fact that staff training is, for what we understand, is really important if you're going to start incorporating AI tools. And the county made a presentation that was really interesting at the government tech, which is there's a process that they have by which a department says, oh, I want to do the following thing with AI. And then they vet it with a committee that says, oh, is it public facing? Does it protect public information? Is it ethical? Or, these sorts of things. And I don't know, we can do some research into that and say what that process is. But the COG can put these things together and say, look, here's how different organizations are doing this. You just don't decide to adopt a tool because it's available. You have to do some sort of vetting process. So those are the kinds of things that we know so far. Jake also mentioned environmental impacts. He was saying that the drag on the electric grid when you start asking questions of it, and that's a con, in terms of what you're saying, Dave. Community engagement was another one of those tools that we might want to take a look at. In CalCog, I think I mentioned it, that they're talking about tools that would swallow all of the staff reports and the council reactions to it, and then predict what each council member will say at any given initiative that comes forward. You may or may not be interested in that, but there it is. It's other. So what's your thought on it? How do you want to?
My city staff tries to do that, but for every council meeting already.
I think they do probably not a very good job. So how do you want to proceed? That's the question we have. The COG is willing to take some leadership. We've got a person that we might do part-time that could help facilitate this. How do you want to do it?
I think this is like one of the things where I tell my students, let the data guide you. So we should start and then see where it leads us, because I think it's not going to be where we think, and that's absolutely fine. But we don't know all of the things that can happen yet, and we don't know what we're going to get into. I mean, like we have the AI chatbot now on our site that actually makes it so that the council can find stuff, let alone the public. So, which is great, and it's been very good. So where is that going to lead us next? We don't know, and I think that's kind of the.
Well, let's make a proposal, Jack. How about? So there's a lot of board interest. So I'm not sure this is a staff committee. I mean, when we did livable communities, it was mostly staff.
Well, it would be board and staff. The idea would be that we invite anybody that's interested.
Okay, so maybe we should. I mean, how do we wanna start? You wanna have like a Zoom meeting?
When we did the broadband stuff, it was just workshops on,
Yeah, it was just lunch and
Topics.
learns, we did
Yeah.
lunch and
Yeah.
learns, so. So during lunchtime, but Brad, did you want to add anything to how you referred to it?
Yeah, I talked to our IT director at the city, and he said that, you know, the city's actually looking into getting started with an AI strategic plan. So if the COG could help it and come up and say, this is how you create an AI strategic plan for all your cities. I think that's something all the cities can use. Definitely, you know, learning the tools, find out, you know, what tools are out there. I think you did talk about that kind of stuff. It's like, you know, what's the landscape, what are the uses? And remember the audiences. So the audience is sometimes you're building an AI for the general public, and sometimes you're building the AI for staff. One of the uses for AI is public records requests. So it's your first cut at getting all your public records response. You put the AI into that, or put that through the AI, and then a staff person looks at it and redacts as needed and so forth. You know, I don't know how many meetings, how often the meetings, I'm newer to this, so I wasn't here for the previous working group, so I don't know, is this a monthly and every other month or a quarterly type thing?
I would imagine it would be every other month.
Maybe what we could do is talk to our potential person and put together an agenda for an opening meeting.
Right.
And then probably do it over Zoom as opposed to lunch and learn, we actually have to come to a
Well, our
place.
lunch and learns were. I thought they were. I think they were Zoom anyway.
I remember.
well, the broadband ones are pre-Zoom.
Yeah.
So
So
the-
Is there such a thing as pre-Zoom?
Doesn't seem like it now, but yes. We did a couple at the Redondo Beach Library, actually.
Be nice.
I think so.
Yeah,
At least the start.
There's also the AI equity. When I showed my friend Jeffrey's biophonica. You know, the idea of text to video, text to photos and text to music now. It strikes me as there's an equity issue here that you want your constituents to have access to some of these tools because it's like the Compton sound in rap music was a big deal. And it could be that there's a Gardena sound or a Gardena or, you know, or what, you know, an El Segundo film. Yeah, but the tools are there now. They're really democratically available. So that's a part of it, I guess, what we want to discuss. So to move forward, we should put together an agenda and call a meeting. Right? And then see.
And it'll be in October, probably.
Yeah, or even, at least not earlier than October. Okay, so.
And are we duplicating efforts? Is this happening all the way up and down the state? Where these types of groups are getting together and.
My impression is that, for example, monitoring the CalCog thing and going to the government technology, is that individual jurisdictions, the bigger ones, the issue kind of is the smaller ones, are kind of making their own way because they've got the resources to do it. They have really large IT departments and all kind of expertise and funding that frankly, you know, our smaller cities don't have. So that's how I think it's proceeding. It's not like region by region, but jurisdiction by jurisdiction that happen to have the interest and the money and the expertise to go about it. So what we're trying to do is we're representing so many small cities. That's why the COG becomes the place to, you know, concentrate all this information and then share it so that you all have the equivalent of an AI strategic plan done at a high level, and then you can adapt it to yourselves in the smaller cities. That's my impression.
When we did the AIGA 2 years ago, Los Altos Hills up north was the only small city that seemed to be doing anything. Boston and the bigger cities had capacity to kind of explore it, but
And Barry's right. We
Can I
don't
ask a
know.
question too, is how many cities are already looking into it individually?
Maybe that would be a place to start.
Most of, when we have you go to our city webpage, you can talk to Sunny. But we were just comparing ours to Hawthorne's. And we said, how do I get a dog permit? And it tells you where to go. But what it doesn't do is give you the link. So then it says, you gotta go to this, you know, as opposed to, the bars did the same thing. But I guess, and what Mina was educated on, I guess at some point, all that information has to be
Everything's
inputted,
hot.
right? So it's all,
Right.
right now it's saying you gotta find it on, you go to this webpage and you'll find it. But it, I guess eventually, kind of like Google in the early days, everything will be loaded and then you go to our chat, our Sunny, and you go, how do I get a dog permit? It'll give you the exact link.
And if
to
you
how to
put
get the
the
dog.
wrong information in, I'm wondering how difficult it is to unlearn it.
Yeah.
Well, Jackie, maybe that's something we can do is call a meeting and have every city come and say what it is they're doing, what their lessons are,
Yeah.
how do you feel about it? What's wrong with it? How does it work? That
But I think what Kim just said is something we should talk about. How do you correct it? If it's wrong.
Well, that's part of the, I think it's part of the planning process, I think, is what it.
So I think it'd be interesting to start with the cities that are what they're doing with it and then take a deeper dive into pros and cons. And for like London's not looking into it, but it's something that I'm very interested in, so.
Yeah, I mean, we're tiny, with a tiny IT department, so.
Yeah.
It's like for
But this does, I mean, that's why the
Yeah.
COG could be kind of the catalyst, like
Right.
these other things. You know, the power of numbers.
Right, I think that's right, David's right.
We'll try to get back to the reason we keep saying October is I am actually going away in September.
No way.
Well, it's coming to an end.
Yeah, but you can check your email while you're gone. We expect you to be on
Yeah, I
top
will
of this,
check
right?
it.
We're going dark in October.
September.
Okay, so what we're gonna do is to consult with our person. And with the idea that the framework is gonna be, you all come and talk about what you're doing and what you think you wanna do. And then we can make a little presentation about what the state of the art is, kind of thing.
And the reason why we do lunch and learns is for the, so the staff is there. Is that a good time for all of you? If we pick like it would be a Wednesday or Thursday, because council meetings. So you'd rather have like, the other time is like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Would that be better?
For me, yes.
Okay,
Midday is tough.
yeah.
So cocktails and learn, how about that?
Yes.
Happy hour.
Okay,
Okay, so.
Well,
4
thank you,
is-
everybody. and we'll move along. Wait, it's just announcements, right?
One announcement I have for you guys is that we are, looking actively to arrange a Love UCLA tour. And they asked us about that. It'll be October, November again, sometime. We thought we had a date, but we can't confirm it tonight. So we'll let you know.
Any other announcements?
The California Coastal Commission is coming to Redondo Beach. The second week of October. The 8th, 9th, and 10th are the meeting days. And there's a LA city sanitation issue on our agenda.
Oh.
And we are planning a reception on the 7th that everyone is invited to. What we're trying to do is get as many electeds and, I mean, it's something allowed. You guys can hear it.
I'm allowed.
We're trying to get as many electeds and city folks and residents to come and understand what the coastal commission is all about, why it matters whether you live on the coast or, 3 hours inland. And the highlands and
7th of what?
the 7th, we're gonna have a reception
Of September?
of October.
Oh,
Okay.
Council meeting.
Yeah. I know.
So you're gonna have
Can it be earlier?
No, it's not fine.
It can be
We
later.
can't, because everyone's coming from out of town. So the meeting's on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Right.
So because we don't know how long the Wednesday meeting is gonna run, because it could run into, so if we schedule it for Wednesday night, we may not
Thursday.
hit the schedule, or Thursday, so that's the problem. So we understand that not everyone can make it. But if you can't make it that night, come and meet some of the folks Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, because we're gonna have a Q&A. The executive director is gonna be there. She's phenomenal. She's gonna talk about, we got a 30-minute video of how the coastal commission came to be in the Coastal Act and the ballot measure in 72, a bunch of surfers and women's group. I mean, it's phenomenal when you talk about at that time how it really was David versus Goliath. I mean, the big oil money, all the developers that just went up against these folks and said, we need to protect our coast. And so how that led into the Coastal Act and all this other stuff. And then why, there are programs like the whale tail grant. I didn't know anything about this till those license plates for the whale tails. That money goes to the
coastal commission that funds a lot of these whale-tailed grant programs. So a lot of the organizations that bring folks to the beach and help with the sailing lessons for folks from the urban areas who don't, you know, have the access we do. So lots of cool stuff out there, demystifying the coastal, because coastal was a 4-letter word before I got on it and understood exactly what they do. And the issue, it's fascinating, because I spent 2 hours talking about moorings today. Moorings in Redondo Beach versus moorings in Newport versus moorings in Catalina that sell for $1.5 million. Those are public trust land. So, you know, the issues are fascinating. Billboard. So anyway, if you're available, we'd love to have you. I think it's just kind of a cool opportunity to get a good understanding of why it matters. And the issues are far reaching. Pardon me? It's gonna be the meeting itself is at the Sonesta Hotel on the 8th, 9th, and 10th. We start at 9 and we go until. And then the reception, we are going to have from 6 to 8 on Wednesday. Did I say Tuesday? You're correct, thank you. On Tuesday, the night before.
At the same location.
Yes, that's what we are. I haven't locked that
If
in
you
yet.
send it to me, I'll send it out.
Okay, yeah, I just have to lock in the reception.
That is the same week as Cal City's in Long Beach.
That's right.
Yeah, I
Which
know.
is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Yeah, I know.
That's right.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. I know.
Okay, any other announcements?
Don't forget the 17th,
What's up, man?
that's you.
I,
Oh. Yeah.
I see. Okay. Looks like we've exhausted the non-quorum agenda, so we will end. Thank you, everybody.
And we're not adjourned. We never started. We never.
Can't finish what you.
So we don't even get credit for showing up tonight, do we? Because it never happened.
We don't get $100 stipend?